In tonight's Fox 7 Focus, a Comal County man has been sentenced to life in prison after pleading guilty to his 6th DWI. A jury handing down that sentence in October to 71-year-old Joseph Herron after he hit a car and a dumpster back in 2022 with a blood alcohol level nearly 3 times the legal limit. But this was just the latest in a string of DWIs for Herron, happening all across Texas and spanning 40 years. I spoke to the prosecutors involved in this case, Assistant District Attorneys Carly Neufeld and Jennifer Feldman, and they shared with me why they believe in this case the punishment fits the crime. What happened in that case?
So the defendant, Mr. Herron, was driving around in early evening, and he was tailgating several people. The defendant pulls into a storage unit facility and hits a dumpster, and then he continues to drive off. As the police are investigating that, they find another person has called 911, where the defendant has actually hit the other person and left his license plate, his front license plate, on their bumper. When police find him, he's pulled it into an apartment complex, and in that complex, his car is undrivable. He's standing next to his car, and that's when they make contact with him and start their investigation.
What's your reaction when you see that video?
Again, I just think of how different would that have been had he hit another vehicle rather than a dumpster.
Dangerous for the community. It's so dangerous. DWI is a crime that doesn't know who it's going to take, right? And thank goodness no one was seriously injured by his driving that day.
What stood out to you when you heard about this case and what happened?
But what really stood out was the defendant's prior criminal history. So he did have 5 prior convictions, and the fact that this defendant had committed offenses in multiple counties. He was driving drunk in Bexar County, Guadalupe County, Comal County, Potter County. We had prior offenses where he was boating while intoxicated, when he was driving a motorcycle and sideswiping vehicles, driving vehicles. And so when you look at that together, this is not just a habitual or a repeat offender. This is someone who is committing offenses in a variety of different ways.
This would be Mr. Herron's 6th DWI. He'd been to prison several times, being his last sentence prior to this was 25 years, which he was on parole for at the time of this offense. So when I look at this case and decide what should we do with this case, what I'm looking for is what's going to keep the community safe and provide justice to the people of Comal County.
What made it clear to you that the life sentence was the appropriate, course to pursue?
We really spent a lot of time talking about what is appropriate. Do we want to ask for life on this case? But oftentimes we think of what is the most dangerous offense, and our minds often go to murder or sexual assault, when the reality is in those types of cases, while they are extremely heinous and they are cases that we need to take seriously, oftentimes there's just one victim, maybe 2 victims. But what is truly more dangerous than someone flying down the interstate, highly intoxicated, all over the road, when we have parents that are just taking their kids to soccer practice or just driving home from work? There are so many people that could be innocent victims of a drunk driver, and that really heightens the dangerous nature of that offense.
What would you say to someone who argues, there are other violent crimes that don't have as severe a penalty, that say this is too harsh?
Well, it's not just one. You can't look at it just as the name of the crime, right? We have to look at the back history, the history that Mr. Herron had. And we had 12 members of the community who looked at that, right? They're like, okay, here we have a DWI, which generally we'd like to get treatment, get help. But the fact that he continued to do it, what is the best way to ensure the safety of people? And that's the way I thought about.
He was given the opportunity to do treatment. He was required to complete treatment. And when you have someone who has completed treatment after treatment, but still goes out and does it again, we're dealing with a bigger issue. And unfortunately, in this case, treatment in the past didn't work for him.
What message do you hope the public takes away from this?
I hope that they realize that it's so easy to call Uber, Lyft, a friend. It's so easy now to get a ride somewhere.
Taking that step to get in a vehicle, get behind the wheel, and drive on our roadways when you are heavily intoxicated, that's something that's just not acceptable in Comal.
And Joseph Herron will be eligible for parole when he is 101. Fox 7 has reached out to his attorney, but we have not heard back.